Susan's gonna help me monitor the chat. And, if you feel comfortable and want to add a comment or want to ask a question out loud, feel free to do that as well. Just raise your hand so that we don't all talk over each other and I can call on you. So I do want to mention that this presentation is going to be recorded. So once we get started, I will hit the record button. And without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. Let me share my screen. Susan, did you already hit record?
I did, sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Do we want to do quick, oh, you may have it in the slideshow.
I do.
Okay,
I do.
got it. I'm gonna be quiet now.
No, you're fine. So, but Susan, I feel terrible I didn't add you to this. So welcome everyone. Let me go back one slide to how to successfully navigate the education fair. So we are really excited to welcome you to the fair on Friday. We have a great lineup of schools that are very eager to meet you. So we just wanted to give you some good tips and tricks to remember as you navigate that fair. So my name is Jennifer Schaefer. I'm the Associate Director of Employer Relations and Marketing for the Career Development Center. And I'm joined by our director, Dr. Susan McCracken. Do you want to say hello?
I will, and I've seen some of y'all a couple of times because I've been serving as your career coach this year, which has been a ton of fun. And I'm the one who keeps sending you the emails, and I appreciate you opening them.
Great. So we'll just start off by saying that the year 2020 has been a challenge. By now, you obviously know that in response to COVID-19, most of what we're doing, including our career fairs, have shifted from in-person to an online platform. And if you are currently a job seeker or you're looking to network with schools, a virtual career fair can be a great resource of which you can take advantage. And there's lots of benefits to it that we'll talk about in the next slide. But we want to make sure that you are fully prepared to not walk into the virtual career fair experience without any preparation. And so we've put together these 10 tips that you'll want to set yourself up for success. And I will say that most of these are common sense, but I think we all at this point have a lot of Zoom fatigue and online fatigue, and maybe these aren't things that are at the top of your mind right now, although many of you are student teaching and have been for a while, so maybe they are, but this is not meant to insult your intelligence in any way, but just to help you think about the things that you want to say and do when you're in that virtual career fair room. So some of the benefits of a virtual career fair are that an online platform allows you to participate from anywhere. I'm going to be participating from my home. Some of our staff are going to be participating from the office, and that goes for you all as well. So even if you're at school, and hopefully you can take time out from your classroom, obviously, you can participate from there. You can also explore schools and positions and opportunities across multiple regions that you may not have had the opportunity to interact with in an in-person fair. Because you can do your research, you can think critically about who you want to see, and sometimes that's not always as easy in an in-person fair. You can also log in and out multiple times throughout the fair depending on your schedule and availability, so that's very helpful. And you can make a more personal connection with a school's representatives via the face-to-face format. Some fairs, I don't know if you've used any other platforms, but not every fair platform allows you to use that video function. And we are very lucky and grateful that Handshake, which is our career management platform, gives us the opportunity to have those face-to-face conversations as well as chat functions. And in addition, it's an easy and low risk way to practice your networking skills. So in an in-person fair, I know it can often feel really intimidating to walk up to a table and introduce yourself to somebody. And in this format, you get to kind of be in a room with other people, and you can, in some ways, hang back a little bit until you feel comfortable to introduce yourself and start talking to the employer, which is what we hope that you'll feel comfortable doing. So tip number one is to register ahead of time. How many people on this webinar have already registered? I don't know if I can see your answers, but has everybody registered?
Or if you can put a thumbs up in your in the
All
chat.
right. Yeah. Excellent. So this is obviously important not only to prevent any last minute hiccups before the career fair, but it also lets you get a glimpse at the schools participating. And that's because when you register for the fair in Handshake, you'll get access to the list of all of the links of the participating employers. And you can start to do your research, which leads us to our next tip. And that is to take some time to review the schools attending the career fair. You'll want to get an idea of some of the representatives you'd like to meet. And you also don't want to walk in unprepared. So maybe take some time to learn about the school district and think of some of the questions that you might want to ask, particularly if it's a school interest that you're very keenly interested in, possibly interviewing or getting a job there. You'll want to really think of what are the ways that you can set yourself apart from others by really engaging with the representative who's going to be there. So the next tip is to update your resume. So your resume should be clean, concise, and up to date. And if you haven't already done that, there's still time for you to have your resume reviewed and to get some tips and tricks from our career guides or from your career counselor who just happens to be here tonight. And you want, sorry, is there a question? Nope. Okay. Once you have your resume up to date, you'll also want to have a digital copy ready to submit online. Oops, I went forward too fast. Sorry about that, technical issues. You want to have a PDF copy of your resume to submit online to the hiring manager. And the way that we do this with Handshake is obviously to upload it to your profile in Handshake. And once you have your resume uploaded in Handshake, you'll also want to make sure that you make your resume viewable to the community, which is what allows employers to access it. Then the other tip is to update your LinkedIn account so that schools can connect with you on social media, because that's obviously a really popular way to connect and have follow-up conversations with those that you want to meet. Did I go too far? No. So tip number 4 is to practice your pitch. Have you thought about how you're going to introduce yourself? You should be able to introduce yourself and highlight your qualifications in your 30-second elevator pitch. And so this should be an all-encompassing statement about you, about what you're looking for. What is your major? What skills do you possess? And why are you interested in this particular school? And as a result, that might change. Your elevator pitch might be a little bit different from one school to the next, and that's okay. Think about what types of positions you're seeking and how your previous work experience is relevant. So where are you teaching right now? And what will that offer to the schools that you're interested in? You want to think about these questions in advance so that you're ready to answer them without hesitation when the time comes. It's also a great way to kind of break the ice, especially if you're nervous. So your well thought out responses could really impress an employer and even allow you to stand out from the crowd. So that's something that you want to do. Does everybody have an elevator pitch? Not yet. Okay, couple yeses, a couple nos. You've got one. Okay, all right, that's great. So tip number 5 is really important, and this is to test your technology and plan your participation location. So you want to make sure that the device you're using is capable of supporting you in the virtual fair, and you definitely want to avoid having shaky camera syndrome. So you may use a desktop or a laptop or a propped up tablet rather than a smartphone, so that if you're moving around or you don't want to have to hold it throughout the conversation, it'll keep things steady. And then you also want to plan out where you'll be attending the virtual career fair from. A quiet location is ideal, and camera capabilities mean that you'll want to ensure it's distraction free from employers. So your background is visible. As you can see, I've got, a virtual background. A couple of you have virtual backgrounds. Keep that in mind because even on a small screen, potential employers can still see plenty of your background, and you want to make sure that the space you're in is clean and quiet and well lit. Because you don't want anything to be a distraction from the conversation that you're having. I have a dog that often likes to join me on Zoom. And so this virtual background keeps you from seeing her and the toys that she brings me. And so that's what you want, is the focus to be on the conversation, not a visible pile of laundry or dirty dishes or a curious puppy.
Mm. Jennifer, if I could just chime in real quick for those of you who are doing your student teaching this fall, I sent you a link in an email earlier today where you could download virtual backgrounds from the University Communications website, and I'll put that in the chat in a moment. And the other thing is, don't assume that because you've been using your computer all semester for class, now y'all are actually in the classroom, so I think you would know if you had a microphone problem. But we actually had a student in one of the career fairs back in the fall, and she said, there's a problem with the platform. People can't hear me. And she was talking to us in Zoom, and we realized it was actually a problem with her microphone. So just test all those things out.
Absolutely. And Susan, please feel free to jump in at any point. I meant to say that at the beginning. So dress to impress. You definitely want to dress professionally, even in this world of Zoom. This is the employer's first impression of you. And so you will be interacting with them most likely in video format at some point during the conversation. That's not to say that you can't pop into the Zoom room and maybe have your video off at the very beginning until it's your turn to speak, but you definitely want to make sure that you do have some video FaceTime with anybody that you're talking to. So be sure to look professional and presentable, at least from the waist up. And just another point about professional dress is that, this is something that indicates to the hiring manager that you value yourself and your work. So the next tip is to put yourself out there. And I think it's safe to say that at a virtual career fair, it's all the more important to exert yourself and make connections because you aren't in person. And so you have to make more of an effort to engage with the employer. And certainly once an employer engages you in a chat, that's the opportunity where the ball is really in your court to introduce yourself and ask some questions about their school and their open positions. And if you are a little bit shy, maybe ask an icebreaker question. And going back to Susan's point about the virtual background, I can't tell you how many times that I have gotten on a Zoom call in the last few weeks where the opening question or topic of discussion was how beautiful my background was. And so it kind of opens a conversation about how pretty app is in the fall. And, so that's a great way to break the ice. If you feel a little bit nervous, maybe ask a question of the employer about the weather, or they might ask you a question about how you're doing or what you're up to or what your background is about. Use that opportunity to kind of ease into the conversation and get comfortable with speaking to them one-on-one. Effective communication is also a really important piece of the puzzle. So you want to make a great first impression by demonstrating both good written and oral communication in the chat and video function. So I know that we are all used to using text lingo and emoticons and slang, but in this type of setting, that's not appropriate. So make sure that you're using good grammar, and that if you do have the video function on, that again, clean background, not distracting in any way. And just like in a traditional career fair, you'll want to present yourself as confident and competent. And one way that employers pick up on this is through your body language. So you'll want to hold eye contact with the employers that you're interacting with. You want to speak clearly and avoid slouching. These are kind of simple, easy, common sense things, but they really do make a difference in kind of how the conversation goes. And I am the worst at this. I am seeing this on the slide right now, and I know this. Hand gestures should be kept to a minimum, but I am a hand talker. So if you've seen me moving my hands around, that's a distraction for people. I can't see myself right now, so I haven't been thinking about it until right at this point. But one thing that I often do to keep myself from doing that is sit on my hands. So if you're a hand talker and don't want that to be a distraction, find something to do with your hands where you can't use them. And you definitely want to avoid blocking your face from the camera. Hopefully I haven't done that. And tip number 9 is to ask for the next steps and contact information. So this is, a really important conversation in the next steps of your career and where you want to go. So when you're talking to recruiters at the career fair, don't hesitate to be forward and offer to send a copy of your resume, or to ask about the next steps in the process or what their timeline is. And so that may mean getting in touch with human resources, filling out a job application, or sitting down for a formal interview. But don't leave that conversation without knowing what you're supposed to do next. And then before parting ways with that person, you want to make sure that you take down their contact information. Some may have it available and uploaded in their profile. So if you've gone to Handshake and looked at the employers that are going to be participating, you'll notice that many of them may have their representative listed there, but it's not uncommon to ask. And you definitely want to know how you can stay in touch, because you'll need this information to follow up with them after the career fair. It's also important to take the information of that particular person, because it could be that the person listed in the profile and the person that you're talking to are two different people. And for follow-up in terms of sending a thank you note or just, a follow-up conversation, it's important to know who they are. And that really is oh yeah, go ahead, Susan.
Well, I guess just one little way to sort of cheat on, well, it's not cheating, it's using technology to your advantage to keep up with people, would be to maybe take a screenshot when you're talking to a group. I mean, it's going to be, they're not going to have a table, but what we experienced before is most of the schools will have something on the wall behind them that says the name of the school or a virtual background. And if you take a screenshot, then you get their names and you get their image, because you're not going to have that same personal interaction to remember them. So that would be Shift Command 5, and it'll show up in your recents in your Finder.
Great point. So finally, tip number 10 is don't let your efforts go to waste by neglecting to follow up with your connections that you made at the fair. So whether you want to send an email, phone call, probably less popular idea, or a handwritten thank you note, which is always welcomed. Be sure to reach out to the connections you made and thank them for their time, and to further express your interest. Employers, and particularly at a fair this large with over 70 different schools participating, and I know that there's quite a large group of student teachers that will be participating, they're going to come into contact with so many candidates and resumes. So you want to use the follow-up note as a chance to refresh their memory about who you were and what you talked about, and more importantly, why you're a promising candidate. You may also want to send them your resume, and that's perfectly fine. You can attach it to the email if you send that, or again, if you connect with them on LinkedIn, that's another way that you could send your resume. And that's also a way to stay in touch with them as well. And I meant to say this back on the communication slide. So I know that this is not easy. It's a little bit intimidating at times. And if you have a particular school district that you're interested in as your top, like this is the school you know you want to teach at, it's your top choice, maybe don't start with them. You know, you are probably going to interact with a number of different school districts. I know if you're student teaching, you need to do, what is it, like 5, I think. So if you are going to be starting with, you know, one of those 5 schools, start with the one that is maybe kind of, you know, an aspirational, or one that you just maybe don't know that much about and want to learn more out. And that way you can kind of get the wiggles out a little bit. You can build your confidence. And so that when you do talk to your number 1 school, you're prepared and you are ready and you're going to be putting your best foot forward. So I apologize. I meant to say that 3 slides back and I forgot. So we want to make sure that you know that we are here to help you. Even though the fair is on Friday, there is still plenty of time for you to talk with someone about your resume, talk with someone about your elevator pitch, and take advantage of our services. We are here. We are so eager to support you and help you in this process to make sure that you get the job that you want. And so this is one way. I'm so amazed by how many of you showed up tonight to participate in this meetup, and I hope you're finding it interesting and helpful, but there's lots of other ways that we can support you. So if there's anything that we can do, please connect with us. You can connect with Susan, you can connect with myself. You can go to our website and our what am I trying to say? Our Career Studio students are there to help you as well, and they have drop-in hours. So don't go to the career fair feeling like you don't have everything prepared because you didn't get to talk to somebody. Let us help you. And at this point, I'm going to ask if there's any questions and say thank you so much for participating. So any questions? Looks like,
Miss
yeah.
Coggin?
Yeah, sorry, that's my name's Maddie. That's from teaching. So I was wondering, for a lot of the districts around Charlotte, it looks like there is like just the district. Are there going to be multiple representatives from each district, or how does that work? Because I know there's a lot of schools in some of those districts.
So typically what we have asked them to do is bring representatives who can speak across multiple schools, who are aware of the opportunities and the positions and will be able to speak to you about them regardless of which school it is.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's a great question.
So one thing else I also wanted to mention, and I put it in the email I sent y'all today, is during the fair, Jennifer mentioned you register and handshake, you'll see a list of the links of all the schools or employers, but we will be in a Zoom room. I'm planning to be there the whole 2.5 hours. I'll be there. So if you just need like a place, a safe refuge, or you have a question, or you're like, okay, I bombed that, what do I do now? Or who else should I talk to? Because part of what I put in my message to y'all, I think last week, is you are required to C5. You may know you're going back to Yadkin County and that's the only place for you, but you will only improve your knowledge and your ability to make good choices about schools by meeting lots of different schools. So take advantage of this for your own personal growth, but know that we'll be in a Zoom room that you can pop into and just kind of, breathe for a minute if you need some help.
Absolutely. And the link to that Zoom room is on the spreadsheet that is in the handshake event, as well as, I think, Hannah, you're going to be sending that out to them as well. Yes. The other thing I wanted to mention, and Hannah, you can stop me if you've already sent this out, is the map. Has that already gone out to students, or is that going out on Thursday? Oh, she's frozen.
Yes, so they got an email. Oh, sorry.
You're fine.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, so it went out yesterday. So they have a link to the districts and they have a link to the map and all the kind of instructions, a link to the form they fill out where they record the 5 districts that they visit. They've got everything.
Perfect. That is something else I was going to mention is if you have a specific location that you are very, very interested in, and you don't really know, what other schools to go visit, maybe think about the schools that are surrounding in that region. And that map is interactive and it will help you. It kind of breaks down the state into the mountains, the Piedmont, and the coastal regions. So I think it breaks it down into 3 regions. And then you can really see what the schools are, which regions they connect to and what positions that they have open. So that might be a way to decide who you're going to see and who you're going to go visit. But I do want to reiterate what Susan said about coming to see us if you get stuck at any point or you just need to regroup or you just need a cheerleader. That's what we're there for. We're going to be in that room telling you to go for it and that you're doing great and trying to help you in whatever way we can. What other questions do you have?
I have 2 questions. So is this shared? I don't know if I missed it because my internet's going out, but is this PowerPoint shared with us?
Yeah, we can share it with you. I haven't shared it with you already, but I would be happy to.
Okay, that would be great.
Yeah.
What my other question is?
Oh, sorry, Haley. I'll have it recorded and I'll send y'all the YouTube. I'll send all student teachers the YouTube link tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. My other question is, so if I know as student teachers we have to do 5 different, log on to 5 different Zooms. If we're sure that we're not, I probably won't be taking a full-time position anytime soon because I think I want to do something. I probably want to go abroad first, but is that something are we yeah, I'm kind of wishy-washy, or we just put it out there like we normally would, like we want the job, and then later on say actually I probably am not going to do an interview or whatever.
So I'll weigh in on that one. I think in your situation, I think you don't want to lead people on, and I think would introduce yourself and let them know what you've been doing and that you're considering some alternatives for next year. But eventually you do plan to teach and you want to find out more about their district. Don't feel like you need to, let them think that you're applying just because you're here in the fair. I think they will really appreciate your honesty.
I agree.
Okay, thank you.
And we also, have shared with our schools and all of our employers that we encourage students to participate at different levels of their education. So they're going to be there for those 2 hours anyway. And even though I think they potentially have, the possibility of being slammed for those 2 hours, it's probably not going to be packed back to back for that whole time. So I think that they are perfectly willing and very eager to, kind of cultivate that relationship with you and, to tell you about their school so that when you are ready, maybe you can apply.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. I'm Carla Starnes. So my question, and maybe you guys can answer the question for me. So there's a couple on the list that are out of state, and the map they only had the North Carolina states on there. But I guess my question is I know Georgia and Texas are very close to the same North Carolina, what we have to graduate and the same testing praxis and stuff. Is South Carolina like that as well? And if you don't know the answer to that question, will the South Carolina employers know the answer to that?
I'm happy to take this one.
Thank you.
Carla, I'll be really honest with you. It depends on who comes from those districts. Sometimes they know, but sometimes they don't. but they will be the best ones to be able to look that information up for you. And so I would just talk to them and ask them about that. So if they don't know, they will know who to reach out to.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Carla, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because we do have a number of school districts that are outside the state of North Carolina. And so if it's not totally obvious from their name where they are from, their handshake profile on the career fair event will give you some more information about that. So if you're doing your research and trying to learn more about them, go to Handshake, because I know that the link that we shared in that spreadsheet doesn't really tell you much. It just keeps you, gets you into the Zoom room. But if you want to do some research on who they are and visit their website and learn a little bit more about them, Handshake is the place to go for that. That's a great question. Thank you.
And Carla, I would also say if it's a district that's really close to Charlotte, so it's South Carolina, just right over the border, they will probably know. If it's a district that's more kind of in the middle of South Carolina or further closer to Georgia or Florida, they may or may not, but they'll be able to point you in the right direction.
Great point.
Okay, this girl's trying to go to the beach, and there's a, I'm just saying. So I'll ask, yes, and I've tried to do a little bit of research, but it's hard to find that information out unless I actually talk to like a college there that has an art education program. I'm an art education major, so it's hard to find that information out. And I know that Texas and Georgia are very similar. There's not a lot different that you have to do. But South Carolina, I can't find a lot of information. So I'll ask and find out.
You'll probably have to go to, I don't know what they call it. Every state calls it something different. Like we have the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. So you'll need to go to the South Carolina Department of Public Instruction. And it should be on there. I'll try to look it up real quick and see if I can find it while we're on the call.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Sorry, I can't see your name. Go ahead.
I have a question. This
Sarah.
may be ridiculous, but so we just click on the link to join the school district that we want to. Is it just kind of a rolling presentation that they're doing, or what happens when we get there?
So it's basically like this. When you pop into the room, there'll probably be a couple other people in there that are asking questions. And this is the format that we did in the spring, and the employers absolutely loved it. They loved having the opportunity to just kind of have a more casual conversation with students. And so probably when you pop in there, you might hear them talking about their district or answering questions that somebody else has asked. But usually they're really, really good to say, hey, Sarah, welcome to the conversation. We're just finishing up, or do you have questions that might be good for the group? So it's very organic and just kind of fluid. So have your camera on, be ready with your questions, but also you can kind of observe and listen to what conversation is already going on once you get in there for a bit. Does that help?
And in the spring, some of them did have a waiting room that they had you stop in first. And it seems like some of them also had breakout rooms. So you might go in and have 2 or 3 people, and then you might break out and go meet with someone else. But do assume that they will be live and in person, and hopefully not talking about something they shouldn't when you arrive.
And I do also want to mention too, if you try to go to a school and you do hit the waiting room and you aren't let in immediately, just pop over into our chat. Like if you end up waiting there for like 5 minutes, pop over into our Career Development Center chat room, because we've actually asked them to disable that. But there are some districts that can't disable it, like their administrative privileges don't allow them to. So what we've asked them to do is just when they see somebody in the waiting room, let them all in at the same time. So if you end up having to wait a bit, maybe just let us know so that we can kind of reach out to them and give them a little nudge. Because in my experience, people aren't going to wait for you've only got so much time and you want to see, different districts, and you're not going to wait in line for 15 minutes. to get in. So.
Jennifer, I have a question. I think you mentioned that there were a very few, like 4, 5, 6 district schools that were not going to use Zoom. They were going to use like Google Meet. Do you know what those platforms are, so that, and is it on that list so that if somebody needed to download another program or platform that they could do that in advance?
So I think, and let me go to the list. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can look at that while we're talking. I believe that it'll be clear from the link.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list right now. There are a couple of Google Meet links.
Yes.
And you shouldn't have to download anything for a Google Meet. I don't think it should automatically, since we're a Google, if you're using your Google Suite and Google Apps.
Right.
And I don't see
A lot of schools,
those.
a lot of schools won't allow Zoom. They only want to use Google Meet.
Right.
Okay.
Well, and so there are some schools who use Google Meet as their platform, but for purposes of this fair, they were able to get the free Zoom link and, you know, have that set up for you. So it's easy to kind of see by looking at the link which ones are Google Meet and which ones are Zoom. And I think those are the only two different platforms that are being utilized. And so I think Hannah's point is correct. Like, since we are a Google school, you should not need to download anything new. But if you're concerned about it, hop on, you know, maybe tonight or an hour in advance or something like that, and just find the schools that you know you definitely want to see and click those links. There won't be anybody in the room right now because the meeting hasn't started, but at least it'll take you through to saying this meeting hasn't started yet. And then if you need to download anything in advance, you'll know that. But you shouldn't need to. That's a great question. Thank you. Any other questions? You guys are on it. I'm so impressed. These are like the most questions that we've gotten, the most engagement, the most people. So I'm super excited. This gives me great hope and excitement for Friday. So
Jennifer, can I say something real fast?
yes.
Carla, I found the information for South Carolina. I emailed it to you, but I want to give you a really big tip. And this is for anyone else who thinks they may want to teach out of state. When you finish student teaching, you graduate, your degree is conferred, you're going to apply for a North Carolina teaching license. Do that. Even if you don't plan to stay in North Carolina, go ahead and get your North Carolina teaching license, because it is then easier to transfer that license to another state versus starting over completely. So it's that thing called reciprocity. So make sure you get your North Carolina license before you apply for a license somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I have a quick question. So do we need to apply or like sign up to which Zoom links and sessions we're going to, or is it just whichever ones we want?
Whichever ones you want. And you don't have to limit yourself to 5. So if you want to go to more, please do. I'm sure that the schools will love it. But as long as you've registered in Handshake so that you can have access to that list and, you know, see them all there, that's all you need to do. You won't need to, you know, individually register for those schools. That's
Thanks.
a great question. Thank you.
Another thing that we're suggesting, guys, is so let's say you know you want to teach, or you're going to go back home to Charlotte and teach. So go to CMS, go to Cabarrus, go to Union. Choose 2 or 3 places you know you want to go to, and then choose 1 or 2 wild cards. Hey, I have no clue about Asheboro City Schools. Let me go check them out. Or go to an out-of-state place. Hey, Alaska is going to be there, and I think we might have 2 different districts from Alaska. Go talk to them. Why not, right? Go to Texas, go to Georgia, wherever it may be. Go talk to a charter school. Go talk to one of these other organizations like City Year and things like that. You never know. Sometimes talking to them, it may totally send you in a different direction, or it may confirm, yeah, I definitely want to go back to CMS. So who knows?
And some of those districts that you don't know much about may have perks that you didn't even realize were options. So that's another thing to keep in mind is, there's signing bonuses, there's all sorts of things. So definitely know your worth. All right, everybody. Any other questions?
Jennifer and I can hang around for a few minutes if people do have any questions. I did put a couple of things to some of y'all in the chat box because I've been working with you individually. So if you would check that before you sign out, that'd be awesome.
Jennifer, thanks so much for hosting this tonight and doing it. You as well, Susan. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Hannah.
Yeah.
Happy
we
All right, and we'll
love
see y'all Friday.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
I actually have one more quick question.
Sure.
So on Handshake, I know that you can upload your resume as a document. Is there any other, I know I asked about cover letters and I felt like you answered that pretty well. But is there any other documents or anything you can think of that maybe would be nice for employers to see? Anything they've mentioned?
Not typically,
Okay.
not that we've heard.
Okay.
In some instances, for other professions, like a writing sample, or, for you all, perhaps a lesson plan, or something like that. But unless they specifically ask for it, I wouldn't think that it is 100% necessary prior to the fair.
Okay.
That's something that they may ask for later, and you can always send that to them. And then if you are hearing from a number of schools that that's something they want, you could upload that to your Handshake profile. But we haven't really heard much in the way of additional documents, just mostly your resume.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much for everything.
You're welcome. Yeah.
My Wi-Fi went out when she was asking about cover letters. What did you say about that?
I said that at this point, you don't need to upload that into your profile with Handshake because you would want to tailor that to the individual employer. So just putting out the resume. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Hey, I just have one question.
Sure.
So I have 2 interviews. I've already done one, but I've got 2 interviews this week with the same school district, but one is for a middle school business teacher position and the other one's for a high school business teacher position. When I go into the career fair and I explain to them that I've applied for these 2 very different roles, should I even mention that I've applied and have interviewed for these 2 positions? Because I don't want to kind of get into murky waters with that situation and then say, oh, well, would you rather teach middle or high school? I just want to mitigate that situation, I guess. I didn't know if you had any ideas or advice.
Yeah. And when you ask that question, you mean like if you went into Burke County schools and you've had conversations with principals at 2 separate schools or the HR. Do you mind telling us where it is? Because I do think that makes a difference.
It's North Rowan and near Salisbury. So it's the Salisbury Rowan school system. It's North Rowan High and North Rowan Middle.
Okay, so it's not a huge system like Wake County. I might, and you haven't gotten an offer from either of them.
No, I haven't.
I think personally, I would, introduce yourself, talk to them a little bit and say, actually, I really want to be in Rowan County and I've actually applied for these 2 positions. I've had an interview for each. And, I'm just waiting to see what might be available and make a decision based on that if you're asked. I don't think they'll put you on the spot. And if they did, that might be something that you log as, ooh, I didn't feel comfortable with that, right?
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing to keep in mind is a lot of times the people that they bring to the fair, they know. they already know kind of, all these things that are happening, and because they are the ones that are managing that process for the school. So they might already be aware of that. So I think Susan's approach is exactly the right way, because you wouldn't want to withhold that
Mhm.
and then for it to get weird, in terms
Yeah.
of, you didn't share it and they already know it, etc. So I
Or
think
they
that's-
don't think you want it, right?
Yeah.
That would be the worst thing.
Yeah, because I want to show myself and I want to say, hey, I'm here. I'm really interested. Okay, but that did help. Thanks for the advice.
Yeah.
works.
I just
Y'all
have
have a great night.
You too.
so once I uploaded my resume, I was getting like messages from like other, I guess, places and stuff like that. If I'm not interested, do I need to respond that I'm not interested, or just like not?
You're
So I want
getting
to be like professional, but
because see, and that's kind of one of the things that's kind of hard is either you're totally private or you're totally public. I would not worry about it. And then after the fair and you've got your job, or you don't want it to be as public, you can always make it not public again.
gotcha. Thank you.
I mean, is that right, Jennifer?
Yes.
Yeah, you can always change your preferences at any time. And I would say, respond if it's somebody you think you might be interested in. But if it's not, don't worry about it. They're probably casting a really wide net, because they have a lot of needs. So they're doing their due diligence to reach out to students and, oh, sorry. So yeah.
Thank you.
Good luck. Great. All right. Any other questions, or we'll go ahead and sign off? All right. We'll be in the Zoom room Friday if you need us. So good luck.
Thanks, everybody. So Susan, you've got the recording, right?